Okay, so I'm back at it, and I'm trying to determine what I'm going to do here with this hinge section. Right now, I've got these pillars that I'm going to be bolting up to the front side of this bulkhead here. These are just 1-inch temporary spreaders to make sure that they're both square to each other, so that when I mount the hinges, that they'll all be square to the center line of the car. So you can see that this has a sweep to it. So being that's the case, these are not going to want to, if you just roll them to where they sit flat on these ribs here, then they'll be cocked and they'll be pointing into the center. So I'm going to put these pillars in, and then off of these pillars I'm going to have pieces to mount the hinges. The hinges are going to be partial. These are partial hinges from one of my projects. This is a Dodge Challenger hood hinge, and what's nice about this, the geometry of this, when it lifts up, it kind of lifts up and away. So I need to mount this through the sides, these bolt holes here, and this is the top, and I'll have to adapt whatever I'm going to do to the top side that's going to attach it to the tonneau cover. So first things first, I got to get these mounted. I decided I wanted to just maybe bolt them through, just in case I wanted to, change the setup somehow. It didn't work out, instead of going ahead and welding them up. You never can tell how practical things are until you've played with them or lived with them for a while. So being that's the case, I'm gonna bolt these pillars up and see how that goes. All right, so I've just tacked a couple of flanges to this upright piece. And take it back out and weld them up good. I've got some self-tapping screws with some washers holding it in place on both sides. And once I get that all welded up, I'm going to put some capture plates on the back side so I can bolt these pieces up. And we'll move on from there. Actually, you know what? I think I'm going to, while I got it in place, I think I'm going to put map out my horizontal pieces here. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do next. All right, so with this straight edge sitting on top of the rubber representing the frame of the tonneau cover, because this thing, you can see, goes uphill a little bit, and then before it goes back downhill in this direction, I wanted to make sure that there was no interference if I just mounted these legs for the hinges square. So you can see from there that it's got the clearance that it needs below the frame. And that's pretty much all I was looking for. All right, so what I like to do when I'm taking apart a donor car is try to keep an eye out for a lot of little stuff that you might be able to use down the road. Toss it aside into a bin. Things like these little weld plates that I scavenged out of the Camino. I forget where they were from, but they're nice and thick. And they give me a nice tab that I was able to plug weld from this side through the face, and that puts a nice spot where I can bolt up the my two towers now for my hinge points. So it'll go right in there. The other thing is, here's the towers themselves. They're pretty much complete. Here's some tabs that I also recovered off the Camino. This is where this hinge, this is a Dodge Challenger hinge that I got off the last job that I did. I needed a forward section of this. You can see it's cut off here. The forward section had a little ball that snaps into those hood hydraulic pistons that hold the hood up, and I just needed to attach it to the hood that I built for that car. So I didn't need the whole hinge, I just needed that front section. But the hinge itself still operates, and it'll bolt to this right about here. And we'll see how that all goes together in a minute here. Anyway, that's where I am with all of that. Just thought I'd show you that. Okay, so here's a mock-up of just a small forward section of this, and you can see this is sitting on this bead here, and it's relatively close to the glass here. So let's see what happens when this lifts up. As you can see, the first thing that happens is it lifts straight up and off of the bead, which is what I was hoping for. And then as it opens further, it pulls back, which is nice, and it's open way wider than I ever think I'm going to ever have it open. But so that's pretty much what I was looking for. And the geometry is already there based on hood hinges that exist. Has an adjustable stop on the back side here also, in case I want to just, get it to hit at a certain location. Like right now it's over closed, but if I want to just lift it up, I can just dial that in to where that bumps first, and it's kind of gentle. Right now I've just got a wedge in here because this is a little bit off the angle, but obviously I'll tune the angle into where this smashes this down like it was designed to, and then that should be it. Anyway, on to the next move, which is, I suppose, mocking up the rest of this front and to see what happens in these inner corners, to see if it does that for the whole thing, or if there's some kind of bind that happens on these inner corners around these sweeps, and we'll see what happens there. All right, now I'm going to start on this frame for the tonneau cover. Originally I was just going to bend this 1-inch tubing with my little handy dandy hand bender there, but 049 wall is just a little too thin for what I'm trying to accomplish here, and as I thought was going to happen, it started to kink. So I don't have a regular tubing bender that you would use that would have a square mandrel on it that would confine it to keep this from happening, in which case you would only get puckers on the inside. But the top and the bottom wouldn't be malformed. So I'm having to go back to a pretty crude way of doing this, and that's basically just slotting it, and then I'll weld it back together once I get the curvature established to match. This is 1/2, I'm breaking it up into 2 halves for the front, and well, once I get it developed, I'll show you how it's going to fit. Okay, so this is what's going on and how it's working out. You can see it's like a segmented snake going around here, and trying to fit it up just to one side first. This will give me a pretty good pattern for the other side, because all I had was that cardboard pattern, and it was not 100% accurate. And as I developed this, I adjusted it, so now I'll be able to draw a more accurate pattern. We'll flip it over and develop the other side over there and get the 2 halves made up. And from that point here, I will join it across from about here with a straight piece, and then put a couple pieces in to carry the hinges, and see how this whole thing acts relative to this window, because I like that gap there, and I like to keep that gap if possible. Anyway, moving on. Okay, so you can see how this is progressing. Now I've got this cross tie in here. It's got a slight arc to it. Not much, maybe an 1/8 inch over the 5-foot distance here. I don't want to get too much arc because I can't arc this forward position. So if I have this arced, we want the panel that goes here to not be, distorted, trying to flatten back out over here, because it's 3/16 thick. It won't be that pliable. Hopefully it won't sag. We'll see. I don't want to put a whole bunch of supports in here, but I will if I have to. But they'll be, if they have to be to keep the shape, they'll just be 3/8 tubing or something lightweight, just to keep it arced up instead of, bellied down to capture water in a pond, if you get my meaning here. Anyway, so now I've got to come up with something here to attach this frame to the hinges, and see how that all works. As far as how it's going to look when it flips up, how close it gets to the glass, if not it does, before I can continue to go on to the back here, because I don't want to do all this work here only to find out that I have to shorten everything back up, pull this back away from the glass a little bit. Right now I've got it, it's not too close, but it's decent. It's about, I'd say about 1/4 of an inch away from the front of the bed, but we've got a little space before it actually encounters the glass. Anyway, that's where I'm at right now, so we'll get back to it and go on to the next thing. All right, with everything set into place here, I put a cross member from the front to the back here, made sure it was square with this frame member that goes across to over here, and that gives me a point of attachment to the cover itself. Now I have to rectify this unusual shape here that's on the on the hinge itself and mend something pretty strong to the in order to create a connection point. So what I've got here is just a paper pattern first, which is going to give me a location to drill through this tube. You see I haven't welded it in yet because what I'm going to do is I've got to drill it out in these two locations and then insert a tube in here so that when I tighten it down it doesn't crush the tube, as I've said before. It's important when you got a thin wall tube and you're going to bolt something to it, you don't want to crush it, otherwise you never get it tight. Never mind the fact that you're going to distort everything. So I've taken and cut that same piece out of a 3/16 steel, and that's going to go in right about here. A little bit heavier, a little harder to put in place. And this will through bolt from the side. This will make the cover removable. Not that I'm going to remove it, but if I need to, I can just unbolt these two bolts. Or I can go ahead and I can unbolt these two flanges over here on the side. I am going to have to come across from this tube to the side over here, which I'll do a little bit later, to stabilize these two pieces here, because those two tabs over there are not enough to keep this thing from wiggling. And so once the weight of this thing goes way up in the air, this thing's going to have a lot of torque on it. So I've got to stabilize that. But that's down the road. I don't want to get involved with that right now. So right now I'm going to put these, take these tubes out here and drill them out and put maybe a 1/2 inch tube so I can slide a bolt through it, and maybe put a weld nut on the end of the tube on the other side. So we'll see how that goes. I may just nut and bolt it because it's such a long bolt going through there. Anyway, that's where I'm at right now. Okay, everything's kind of just tacked up to make sure that, you know, if I have to change anything, I don't have to cut too much welding away. But so far, it seems to be working okay. I mean, it lifts up pretty good. There's no interference in the front with the glass. As you can see, it moves away, which is as part of the geometry of that hood hinge. It's designed to do up and away. You know, it's a hood hinge, so they don't want the hood to go into the glass of the windshield, so it's usually up and away. So that works really well. So now it's on to lots of boring, make the rest of it stuff. Okay, I'm starting to work my way around the perimeter. I've got these two long legs on both sides. I've got a slight curve to them in this direction here. And I was a little bit surprised to find out that this has got an arc over, which is helpful. That means that I've got a little bit of arc in this that I put in there without knowing about that. And that means that this whole thing will have a slight arc to help the water shed off of it and then side to side, which is nice. And it also helps to keep its shape when it's got a little bit of shape to it like that. You know, it won't tend to reverse so much, hopefully. Anyway, I'm going across the back here. I'm very shocked and surprised to see this is my plate for my latch, that this is laying right across it and everything. This is the 3/16 that will be on the top. It plays right into this piece of molding here. Anyway, looks like that. Yeah, shocked and surprised that this is where it needs to be. Anyway, moving on. Okay, so that's what the basic frame is looking like, all tacked together. I've got some weld nuts in these two members here. Stuff to put two in this member here that are holding this latch plate in. So I'm going to set you up on a tripod so you can see how this thing works. All right, so I've decided to tackle the gas pistons that hold this bed lid up. And so the first thing I'm going to do is I've got this gas piston, pair of gas pistons that I salvaged out of the Camino from the hatchback. They may be too strong, don't know yet, because that's lightweight tubing, that's 049 tubing, and I don't want to bend it in half, put a kink in it, trying to, you know, pull it down. I don't know how much weight it's going to need in order for it not to do that, but we're going to find out. First point that I'll establish is this is the base, and this will go this will mount up to the car body itself inside the bed. And it's like a seatbelt type bolt with a shaft on it. And I've got these inserts that I salvaged off the car. These ones will thread into this. This larger size here actually works well with the pin that goes at the opposite end. There's a little socket here that this pin goes into. Now, once I've established this, in order to determine where this goes on the frame, you can see how the shaft is worn. And this is the travel of this, or the travel that this has been experiencing. It might actually go further than this, but from here to here is where it was working on the Camino. So I'll take this measurement here and I'll subtract it from this measurement here, and then this pin will be located about here on the frame itself, and hopefully that gives me enough travel to go up and down, and hopefully it's not too loaded up that it bends the bed cover in half. We'll see how it all goes. Okay, I've made a couple of these guys here. It's got that nut welded in there, and then that'll bolt up to here with that seat belt looking bolt. This plastic going to that side right there, and I'll just mount that, weld it permanently to the inside up as high as I can go right there, and that should stand it off far enough that it shouldn't interfere with anything. Anyway, gotta weld those on, see how it goes. Well, it looks good. Unfortunately, there's so much force on these pistons that it's torquing my hinges completely out of shape over there. And before I can pull it down, and I forced it down, and what I was afraid of was going to happen was there's so much force over here with these particular pistons that it was turning around and creating a bow in this once it was shut. So I'll have to go with, I've got another set of pistons here. These are just for holding up a hood, a smaller hood, and not a hatch. And we'll see how they work out. I'll have to change my mounts and all this other stuff to make that work. But oh well, it was worth a shot. All right, so I'm making adjustments. One of them is to these brackets that hold the hood hinge. They're the lid hinges. And the first thing I had to do is I bent up some sheet metal so that I could get them back square to each other, because the amount of torque that was on them, they were kind of twisted out of shape, bending at the tabs over here. And mainly because I don't have a counter tab on this side over here. I kind of knew I was going to have to do this, but I was going to put it off till later. But I wanted to make sure I put something where it wouldn't interrupt any load capacity underneath here, because I would have had to put something either underneath here in order to stabilize these two together as a unit. So now they're still individual and they can be detached should I need this load capacity for any reason, which I doubt that I ever will. But if I never need to take these assemblies out, I can. But now this is triangulated back to the side of the car, and it's really stout and there's no wiggle to it. So the other thing I did was weld up the hinges and get them they're not any stronger, but I had to straighten them out and weld these pieces up solid to here on both sides. And then on the one hinge I had to straighten this piece out because it had bent from me trying to force the bed cover down. So got them straightened out, and that's my weak link right there. There's really no way to strengthen that up. I mean, I could add a little bit of metal to the bottom there, but that wouldn't do much for me. It would just find the next weak spot, which would probably be one of these pivot points that are they're just smashed on there. They're not unbolted or anything like that. So I'm trying to see what I can do about making this thing so that there's not a lot of pressure on it. Anyway, this frame is already, even though I use lightweight tubing, like an 049 wall, it's still already almost too unwieldy and heavy. Excuse me, heavy to maneuver myself. So once I get the overlays on there, the ABS plastic, I'm going to have to start using my hoist to get it on and off when I need to. Anyway, I've got to get back to taking the Camino pieces off and then putting these lighter weight hood lifts, which I had been holding to the side to put on my car. My car, I have to use a prop to keep it open because the pistons on it are not strong enough. These are the ones that I used on the last one, which was Randy's Hellcat hood, and that thing weighed about 3 million pounds. So they'll do the job for that, and hopefully they won't have too much resistance and they won't bend up my frame here. All right, back to it. So this is where we're at now. I had to disassemble the hinge mechanism. There's considerable twist that I experienced as a result of those pistons that I had put in from the Camino, I should say, not for the Camino. And so it torqued this frame quite a bit. I had to cut quite a few things loose and start back from scratch. Welding up these plates had distorted them somewhat. They were not fitting in a relaxed fashion, so I had to clear some issues there. But I've got these smaller pistons in here now, and I'll set you up on the tripod to show you how this thing's working. So you can see just by turning that key in the back, it releases pretty well and pops up on its own. Hopefully by adding the 3/16 ABS plastic to the top, I won't be adding enough weight that'll restrict those pistons from working. That'll hold it up just fine, and we'll go on from here. All right, I've been struggling trying to cook up some super clever way of attaching this trim and also getting all of this so that it's waterproof, and attach the plastic to the top. And I basically threw all my plans into the waste can, as you would say, because they were just too complicated and they were going to cause all kinds of possible fit and finish issues. So I went back to a pretty straightforward, simple plan. The first thing I did was I extended this frame out over the top of the rain gutter with this flange, and then trimmed it off so that it followed the profile, this curve of the body itself. And these are mock-up pieces here, and what they look like, they're just simply a piece of ABS plastic, and I glued another piece of 1/16 inch ABS plastic to the top side of it as a spacer. And the reason is that gives me the ability to have a little return lip down here, as you can see, because that 1/16 of an inch is tucked up underneath this portion here, so that when I screw this down, it doesn't change the angle of this flange. And I went ahead and I cut the actual return side, that'd be this downside here, completely off. So now I just have a simple L with a little lip here that grabs the plastic and screws it down. Of course, these will have to have sealant in them before they get screwed down, which is not a big issue because the plastic itself is going to have sealant underneath of it, and then it actually, if water gets under there, it's all within the rain gutter or outside of the body. So it's not an issue there as far as leakage is concerned, I wouldn't think. But I had make the sacrifice of putting these stainless steel screws, self-tapping 1024 screws, where they're visible. But this trim is going to be black, so they'll be less prominent. But anyway, that's what I'm working on right now, is trying to complete this flange and make this so that this Once the plastic's in and covering here, it's firmly down and captured. It's not any kind of a system that would let the plastic fly up and off, any glue or anything like that. So that's where I'm at with that, and I'm going to move on from here. One issue that I was having that I took a little time to solve, and it took quite a bit of studying on it to figure out what was going on. And I thought these hinges, because they're not straightforward, because they have a multiplicity of arms and geometry that move up in a way that for some reason or other they weren't giving me a solid hold down onto this front seal over here. When everything was said and done, once I put these pistons in, it seemed like it wasn't landing, and I was pushing down on it, and it was just popping up, springing up. So I felt like it was probably what I have experienced before is these pistons are so strong that when they're in the down position, they put some force in that direction. In this case, because they're slanted, they might be pushing in an upwards direction. At any rate, that wasn't really the case. What was the case was these hinges, even though I'd built everything up without any kind of pressure or any kind of bind, in the end result, after I put the pistons in, things changed just enough to where this plate that's mounted sideways here was actually limiting it from rotating down into its final position. So what I had to do is elongate the holes in this plate, trim some more off the top of the plate, which allowed the front of the plate, as you could see, which was flush, to rotate downwards, and then this to rotate up. And as I did that, as you can see, if you rotate this plate up relative to this bar naturally moves down, and now it's closed up on the rubber gasket in the front, and there's no additional work that has to be done. So I was thinking I was going to have to cut the frame and change the arc of the frame and all this other stuff, and none of that seemed to be working. I did a little bit of that, and it just was making a mess out of things. So I went back to square one, got the frame back flat so that I knew that the shape of it was right laying on this rubber seal. And then it turns out that little tiny adjustment in those hinge plate attachments is what was the ticket to get that thing to rotate down and stay in there. Anyway, I just thought I'd tell you about that. One thing I generally don't film is small areas that require a lot of doodads and adjustments. As you can see, I've got these flanges that used to hold on this corner piece. You've got this inside corner here filled with, seam sealer. You got this place right here where I've extended it out to accommodate the narrower tailgate. And you got this, like I said, extra flange here. It's a mess over here. So in order for me on the other side to start working my way around the corner, I've had to go ahead and clean all that up and adjust that for everything. So I've got this worked around all the way here. It's closed in at the top now. All the seam sealer was removed, and that was all welded up solid. And I've taken this flange and continued this flange just around to this side over here. That might not have been entirely necessary, but keep the water, along as much water as possible out of the car, out of the bed. So you can see what I've got here. Like I said, there was an opening here, this goofy flange here that I didn't need any longer. Dig out all of this old seam sealer in here, run that wall around here, and just reconcile the whole thing before I can get to see how this corner's going to come around and then run into this piece over here. Anyway, I thought I'd take time to show you that. All right, here's something that's super fiddly that I'm working on right now, and that's this corner piece here. I'm basically temporarily riveting everything together a little bit at a time to correct the corner to go around and lead a little bit better into this rear rim. But I'm also trying to figure out ways to connect it to the stainless steel piece here so that this is a continuous band all the way around here. Right now what I'm doing is piecing it together slowly
with pieces of stainless on the backside and some mild steel. And I'll have to take these all back off and then put some epoxy on them to make sure that they don't, it's not just the pop rivets that'll hold it together. I'll have to put countersunk pop rivets in eventually, grind the whole thing down, put some epoxy on it, and get this pot metal mended back together so that it's a continuous piece. And then from there, I'll make sure that I can affix it with some epoxy and also some countersunk rivets to this part of the stainless steel and also to this, so that this is one continuous piece. Anyway, just fiddly stuff like that takes hours to do because you got to work like a surgeon.
All right, so these corners are quite tedious. They're pot metal, so they don't want to cooperate. Right now they're physically held together with pop rivets because you can't weld to them, obviously, but I have sheet metal underneath that I've pop riveted to this piece to keep it in the shape I want. Also to create sleeves to go up underneath the existing pieces of stainless steel trim. This one being the second one's a little bit better looking than that other one. I struggled a little bit in the beginning to try and figure out how I was going to stabilize everything, because once this is cut apart, it's very fumbly, and trying to get everything to line up, you know, straight with this and straight with this, when this piece is not cast that way originally, it kind of kicks in and doesn't follow the body line correctly. Anyway, this piece now is on. It's this represents the tonneau cover plastic that gets captured up underneath this rim here now, with these stainless steel screws tapping down into this flange that I put on as an extension of the frame. So you can see what's going on. This also has a piece of steel, sheet metal, that slides under here so that this piece is captured. So this is one piece, and then this becomes a second piece, and then that's the third piece to create this capture for the plastic. So, and as I was describing before, this now this rim, which used to be attached to the car directly, is attached to the tonneau cover itself, creating that lip to go over and shed water. Hopefully that works okay, just like that. And that's it, clipped down. Now I've got to take these corners off this piece here, and I've got to set this all in epoxy, put flush rivets in, clean it all up so that it's a good looking piece. And then I have to make a pattern for my panels that are going to fit on the top here. I still have a lot to do over here, which reminds me I have to create a capture for the front here, because the plastic is not captured. I could probably just put the stainless steel screws to the top, but I wanted to put a captured steel rim around the front, so I'll probably deal with that before I get involved in making patterns for the panels. Yeah, I forgot all about that. Anyway, it's going to be a little bit of a challenge. Anyway, I'll show you what's going on when I get there. Okay, so here's the principle of my hold down for the bed topper, the plastic on the front half of this hardcover. And what it is it looks like this, and the principle is here's the plastic, and then it'll screw through the top here into this. It'll be threaded into this, and then you see right here I've got a slight angle at the bottom, and what that does is it provides for a drip edge for the water, making sure or ensuring that it goes into the gutter, the water runoff gutter. And sometimes what you don't anticipate is this sitting down on top of the seal looks all very well and good, but there might be a gap here and there. And the thing about water is it'll go uphill. You see this with in construction on the edges of roofs. They put what they call a roof dam, drip edges also. If you don't provide that, what will happen is water will hit this surface, and then it'll run backwards on this surface, like with it has like a suction, a siphon, and it'll go right in along the bottom, and it'll track right in and drop inside where it'll drip off. So you have to provide, like I said, in construction, you have to, when you're building a house, you have to provide drip edges for where, when the water hits, it has some place to cleanly break off and drop. Otherwise, it'll follow the surface and wick. It's even been known to go uphill on certain roofs. I have some experience with that a little bit, but it'll actually go up the hill, and then it creates ice dams. If you have a house in the north, you know what that's all about, and causes a lot of structural damage by wicking uphill. Anyway, I thought I'd show you that. Well, it's a good thing I didn't cut out these mounts for the Camino hatchback gas pistons, because I started adding the 3/16 plastic here, this ABS plastic to the top, and about the time I added the last piece, weight-wise, the pistons that I was using that held it up just fine. What I was afraid of was too much weight for these, and it's just about right for the Camino pistons. So that worked out. It shoved it slightly back here. It's a little bit gapped at the front, but I don't think that's going to be a big issue. Still landing on the gasket pretty full. And anyway, so little reverse gear there, and I'll get to fitting up these panels here. Try and close up this top here. Okay, so this is what it's looking like now, this bed cover. I had to run out and get 3 strips of 1/8 inch by 1 inch aluminum. I was going to make them out of steel, but I've got no way to cut a single piece of steel. That's only 52 inches long, and this is about a 60-inch length on these strips. So I went out and got some aluminum strips to put in between here. Right now they're just clecoed down. These are all individual panels, here, here, and here, splitting the 1-inch beam going across. Relatively the same size, roughly about 20 inches a piece. I have to do some adjusting on the latch, because with the addition of the Camino pistons, it pushed the frame back about 1/8 of an inch. So I had to readjust all of my trim here so it lined back up. I had to gap this a little bit, get this to work. At any rate, I have a little bit of time that I'm going to be taking to go through all of these clecos and drill and tap each one of these holes and countersink them, so that I can put these stainless steel screws in to screw these down to the frame. At any rate, that's what it's looking like now. I'll get back a little bit further so you can get a perspective of it. But I'm pretty happy with the way it came out. Didn't like the fact that I had to swap out the pistons again, but at least I had something that would work, that would hold it all up and take the weight. But that's all I have time for this video. So I'd like to thank anybody who's been following along. I will see you on the next one.